So, hi guys, my name's Veronica. I'm currently in FY1 in Leicester Royal Infirmary, and I've been working with Frankenspines for around a year now. Today, I'll be talking about the scoping search and search strategy and how to create that once you've got your research question. So just to go through the learning objectives, we'll be going through the purpose of what a scoping search is, including the feasibility of the research question, how to perform it, how to design a reproducible search strategy, and how to use mesh terms, keywords, and Boolean operators well. And as Shanedu said, if you have any questions throughout my presentation, feel free to either raise your hand or just unmute yourselves and ask a question. So what is a scoping search? So it's a sort of informal search that you do once you have your research question. And the main purpose is to assess whether a systematic review is actually feasible. So it helps also refine the research question in terms of whether there's any extra bits that you want to add into the research question, or if there's already a systematic review available, if there's a way to make it like even more sort of niche. And it also helps identify existing reviews and key terminology. So for example, if there are any literature reviews on the subject already, any other systematic reviews, and other key terminology that you may want to use in your search strategy. So why do we want to perform it? So the main couple of things is that we want to avoid duplicating a existing systematic review. So, for example, if a systematic review was done on a subject in the past, I would say 2 to 3 or 4 years, it would, in my opinion, not be effective to repeat another systematic review on this subject unless there has been a lot of research done into it in the past couple of years that would justify another systematic review. But that's where your scoping search comes in. It also helps identify the volume of literature that is available. So as I've alluded to, if there was a systematic review done, for example, 3 years ago, but since then there has been like 10 more RCTs performed and they've all been published, then you might want to repeat the systematic review. Or if you have an idea for a systematic review and you do a scoping search and you find that actually there's no studies available, the subject is too niche, then you might want to think about taking a step back and making your research question a bit more general. Or if you have a research question, so this is something that has happened to us recently, if you have a research question that seems quite good, but then you perform a scoping search and actually you find out that there has been a lot of narrative reviews performed, some of which are bordering on being a systematic review with a Prisma chart, then you might want to think about maybe just thinking of a different research question. So it also helps identify study designs that are likely to be included and whether that's like prospective studies, retrospective studies, or RCTs. It also helps clarify your outcomes, populations, and interventions a little bit more. So if you notice that there's a lot of research being done, for example, in terms of maybe above 18s or something like that, that can be something that you can include in your inclusion and exclusion criteria as well. So basically, a scoping search helps answer these two questions. So is there enough research available for you to be able to analyze and synthesize? And if not, you may want to broaden or change the focus of your question. Or more commonly, has too much research been written about this topic? So if your search is already retrieving very large number of relevant results, then you may want to focus your question further. So the way to perform a scoping search is that you sort of want to choose one or two databases, so like either PubMed or Medline or Embase, And you want to search broadly using simple keywords. So I would say pick 2 to 3 keywords from your research question. And you really want to then put them into like your basic, one, I'll go through an example in a second, but just your basic search. And then you'll want to see what comes up. So firstly, it also helps determine whether your search terms are picking anything up and whether you might want to use synonyms or some rephrase your question. And it can also then you can just scan for titles and abstracts to see if anything relevant is coming up. You can also this method can also help you identify key mesh terms and synonyms. And as I previously said, the volume and also publication year. So it can help you further identify your inclusion and exclusion criteria. So if a lot of studies have been done on it, since like, I don't know, there are some studies that have been published in like 1975, then, you might want to broaden the year as well of your research. So just as an example, so does radiotherapy reduce the progression of Dupuytren's contracture? And the main 2 words that would stand out for us to input into, PubMed, for example, would be Dupuytren and radiotherapy. So when you do that, you find around 150 results, which are mostly observational studies. And another common term that comes up is palmar fibromatosis or radiation therapy, for example. So those are terms that after scanning for the titles, you can then include into your actual search strategy. So if you find that a systematic review already exists, you may want to assess whether it answers the same question. Is it a similar systematic review or is it exactly what you're looking for? You may want to look at the differences in inclusion and exclusion criteria. For example, do they have a cap on age or anything or a location of, for example, is it just on the thoracic spine or do they look at the thoracic and lumbar spine? You may want to think about whether the primary outcomes are the same or whether there are some different primary outcomes that you can look out for. I think the biggest thing to look out for as well is how recently the systematic review was published. So whether it was published within the last 2 to 3 years. And you want to consider whether an update is justified due to new evidence. And I think this is the most important thing, because if you don't do a scoping search and then you do your search strategy, do the search, do the screening, and then just to find out that there is already systematic review present, then that would be quite a bummer, quite upsetting. And you may want to see if there is a significant overlap between your review and the one that already exists, and refocus or adapt your research question based on the sort of preliminary information that you find. So that was that bit on a scoping search. Hopefully you guys are happy with that. And now we will move on to the actual search strategy. So what is a search strategy? So this is essentially the core of a systematic review. It is a structured, reproducible method for identifying studies. So what that means is, if I develop a search strategy and I give it to Shinedu, he should be able to find the same exact studies that I've found based on my search and based on the same search strategy. Now, this should be reproducible on PubMed, on Ovid as well, if done correctly. So the main thing about systematic reviews is the fact that they're reproducible as well. A search strategy uses controlled vocabulary such as mesh, as well as free text terms. We will go into this a little bit later in a bit more depth. It also combines terms using Boolean operators. So Boolean operators refer to words such as and or, and that you will see those present commonly in the search strategy. It also must be reported transparently in your systematic review. So whether that's in the appendix or within your methods, It's something that you see commonly is the fact that we actually say what our search strategy was. So how to create a search strategy. Now, just as a bit of a heads up, this was taken from, a lot of the information was taken from Covidence, the website, how to write a search strategy for your systematic review. So Covidence is a very well-known screening service. We don't have that yet, but it used to provide a like free trial. And basically it helps, it's sort of similar to Rayan, it helps screen studies. So it's quite a reliable, well-known resource often used by universities and research centers in hospitals. So the first step is you want to identify your databases. So in clinical medicine and surgery, we are most likely going to be looking at either Medline or PubMed, Embase, and Central. Now, I say either Medline or PubMed because they have quite a big overlap content-wise, so one of the two should be used as opposed to both. Then, depending on the subject of the review, it might also be appropriate to run the search in databases that either cover specific geographical regions or specialist areas. So, for example, if we're doing a systematic review on something related to psychiatry, then we might want to search on PsycInfo as well for some psychiatry-related topics. Or CINAHL is one used commonly for like nursing-related topics. So if we're doing one on like wound management, then CINAHL might be a database that we are interested in. Now let's talk grey literature. So grey literature is research that was not published in journals. So this can include, for example, trial registers, conference abstracts that were published, thesis or dissertation. So sometimes including grey literature is quite useful because it helps avoid publication bias that Shinedu touched on earlier by including studies with non-positive results. So as Shinedu mentioned, some journals are quite picky about just, publishing studies that show some sort of result, some sort of change with a significant p-value. But in grey literature, we sometimes find studies that actually show that there's no difference, which is sometimes quite a useful conclusion to have as well. So although most grey literature findings will be excluded in the screening process, it is quite important to also have our eye out on some grey literature as well. So the step 2 would be to write and refine the search. So here I just used an example from a paper that we did on solitary spinal plasmacytoma and the intervention being either radiotherapy or surgery. So here you can use your PICO, as Alexa mentioned, to help identify the key terms. So the keywords are searched for in the title or abstract of the records in the database. And you want to extract the main concept from your research question and create a table sort of like the one here. And you can use your PICO to help you. So make sure to, really use the resources that you have. You then, once you've identified the main terms within your PICO, you can then create this other table, which can help you identify your main terms, text words, and mesh terms. So, for example, we've got plasmacytoma, spine, and solitary. So the text word, would be any of these sort of synonyms, and as well as the mesh term being plasmacytoma, for example. And similar for spine and mesh here. You also want to consider the spelling variations in terms of UK and US, as well as acronyms or abbreviations that can be used. And yeah, you just sort of want to list them out in this table here. And you can update the table as new terms are identified during reading. And that's why your preliminary search can also be quite important because you can already start listing the terms that you want to use in your more detailed search strategy. So the step 2 continuation would be, yes, Vaish, what's up? What question do you have?
Thanks, Vero. Could you please go back to the previous slide?
Yeah.
So I find it, I don't think I've understood the difference between,
Hey, Vaish, I think you're muted.
No, I'm
Oh, you're
using
here.
AirPods.
Sorry.
okay, between like mesh term and text word. So does like, if we use the word mesh term like plasmacytoma, will
Yeah.
everything under text word come in the search as well?
So that's a really, really good question. So mesh terms are, it's basically, so right, when you submit a paper to a journal, that, or to a database that the journal is linked with, the people who work in the database will then read the title, the abstract, the whole paper basically, and then they will flag that paper to a couple of keywords, right? So whether that is plasmacytoma or plasma cell neoplasm or like a bunch of other different things, they'll identify what categories that paper fits into. And when you use, so that is what sort of mesh is. It helps categorize the paper within, for example, spine surgery, and it helps categorize it into more specific things.
Okay.
Whereas,
sorry, go on there, Veronica, sorry.
Yeah, so it helps you identify, for example, if you don't include something in your text words and you still use the mesh term, it will help identify other papers that you may not have thought of. So plasmacytoma also falls under the specialty of hematology. And that's not something that, we would have searched for originally, if that makes sense. Whereas that is something that would have been flagged by the people who index the papers. Does that sort of make sense? Sinead, do you want to add anything?
No, absolutely. I think that absolutely makes a lot of sense. So think of mesh like a net, right? So like a fishing net. You throw in a fishing net, all the the keyword, which is that net, covers all the relevant research based on that. And that's why when you're submitting a paper, like Veronica said, they would always ask you you should list at least 5 to 10 keywords. And those keywords are the keywords they're going to use to create your mesh for the paper. But yeah, so that's it. That's also what to add. Very good.
Yeah. And oh, sorry, go on.
I just said that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So here I'll go into a bit more detail, but let's talk about truncation. So truncation is, you use it, it's mainly used with an asterisk in PubMed. And it searches in the title and abstract of the paper as well. And it is used to retrieve multiple word variants from a single word root. So for example, if we sort of do TUMO, right, asterisks, it will retrieve tumor, tumors, tumor, or tumors, right? So there's different spellings. And so everything, it will search for all words which start with TUMO, like TUMO, asterisk, and it will search all terms related to that in the title and in the abstract. Then moving on to indexing, so mesh terms. So this helps save time in systematic reviews by helping researchers retrieve records that are genuinely focused on this topic, while excluding those that only mention it briefly. So index terms or mesh terms are assigned through careful review of each study's content, not just the presence of specific words like truncation does, or just searching for keywords does. It allows the relevant studies to be identified even when keywords alone would miss them. So that also is something that mesh does. This is just a breakdown to sort of go through as well what mesh can do. So through all the mesh categories, and this is just to search for spine, right? So it goes through all the mesh categories, and then through the anatomy category, and then through the MSK system, the skeleton, the bone and the bones, and then it goes to the spine. And that is, if we use spine and then mesh, this is how it would index and search for those studies. So effective search strategies should combine index terms and keywords and rely on index terms alone. So relying on either just keywords or just index terms may miss relevant studies. And in practice, both are used together and combined with Boolean operators. So on PubMed, I'll go through PubMed and then how to search on Ovid as well. So let's focus on PubMed first. So on PubMed, we have mesh or index terms that are used alongside truncated keywords searched in titles and abstracts, right? Then we have OR is used to broaden the search and capture all the relevant records. So this is sort of a really helpful graph that shows the keywords containing results A or B. So we search for all of A or all of B. So it's sort of both of them. Then AND is applied to combine the key concepts and narrow the results to the topic of interest. So it would only search for this overlapping bit if you used AND. And NOT, I actually have not seen the word not used quite commonly, so it's not used commonly, but that's a bit of a tongue twister. But it's used at the final stage to exclude irrelevant records, such as animal-only studies. I haven't really seen this used commonly, but I just wanted to tell you guys about it. So this is a combination of how we did the plasmacytoma search, and brackets also are used to group relevant keywords together in a search string, which ensures that the search within the brackets is performed first. So if we have brackets solitary, right? So I'm searching for solitary, so just one, and all of these terms, right? So that will search for a solitary A, and B would be plasmacytoma. So it's searching for just solitary extramedullary plasmacytoma, or solitary plasma cell neoplasm, or solitary plasma cell neoplasms, or solitary plasma cell tumor, etc. Right? And within that, we are searching for the columna dorsalis, or the dorsal column, or just spine. So you can now begin to see how many different combinations we can make here. So we can see solitary, we're searching for solitary, and in extramedullary plasmacytoma, and in the columna dorsalis, for example, or solitary plasma space cytoma in odontoid. And then that will help capture a vast number of different papers that only focus on what we are looking for. Does that sort of make sense? Are you guys happy with that?
Makes a lot of sense. It's great. Thanks.
Okay, all right. So moving on to how to do the search strategy on Ovid. So Ovid and PubMed have a bit of a different layout. So if you just copy and paste this into PubMed, it should be able to find what you're looking for. Now, Ovid is a little bit different because it wants you to enter terms line by line, right? So the mesh or index terms on Ovid are done by using the sort of slash if you want to search for mesh terms instead of the brackets mesh, right? So this is how you do the mesh terms on PubMed, but on Ovid you want to use the sort of slash here. And if you want to search specifically for a text word, then you would use .tw. And that, again, searches for the term in the title and in the abstract and captures free text keywords that were identified by the authors. So if I wanted to do the same search but on Ovid for the solitary plasmacytoma in the spine, then I would do solitary text word. and then I would enter that as one of the lines in Ovid, as you can see here. And that identified 57,000 records. Then I would, if I wanted to search for a mesh term, I would do plasmacytoma dash, and that would be a mesh term. Same for spine and spinal column, etc. And as you can see, we are also using truncated words here. So this is how you would search for the truncation and text word function here as well. And then at the end, I want to search for 1 and 4 and 7. So after I'm done inputting everything I want, I would search for 1, which is solitary, and then number 4, which combines plasmacytoma and all the text words for plasmacytoma, and 7, which is here, which would then find all of these results in spine. So I'm searching for solitary plasmacytoma in the spine. And that leaves me with 231 records, for example. Okay, so now to run and record the search. So once you're happy with your search strategy, you then apply that to the databases that you want to search for, and then you want to run the search. So keep in mind the differences that I've sort of spoken about between PubMed and Ovid, because you want to sort of get comfortable with searching on both, and you want to make sure that what you're inputting actually makes sense and runs. Because if you just copy and paste the search strategy that I showed you from PubMed into Ovid, it's not going to run, it's not going to work, and it's not going to identify the records correctly. So you want to make sure that you're doing this systematically and strategically, and that you're comfortable with using the text words, the keywords, and how to do so on both. Okay. So all of the search strategies that you retrieve should be saved and backed up, because they form a key part of the review's method, and they must be reported transparently in order to make it reproducible. And reporting should follow PRISMA guidelines, and including documenting the number of records retrieved and the study selection using a PRISMA flow diagram. So this is an example of a PRISMA flow diagram, again, for the plasmacytoma paper. So we can find, for example, 250 studies on PubMed, 250 on Embase, and that's 2 on Ovid, and that works up to 500. And then we usually use something like Covidence or Ryan to help screen through the papers. And what they do as well is that they detect duplicates. So sometimes, even though we're searching on different databases, there will be the same paper published on, for example, a journal linked to both PubMed and Embase, right? So we want to detect duplicates, delete the one of the two, and once we've deleted the duplicates, we can actually start our screening, which Hussein will talk about next week, I believe. Then as I've mentioned earlier, we want to sort of report the search strategy either within the methods or in the appendix to allow others to help replicate it if they wish to do so. And that is a wrap. So next up, screening, but I think Hussein will go through that next week. So hopefully I haven't confused you guys too much. Let me know if you want me to go through anything. I know it can be a bit tricky wrapping your head around. But yeah, that is it.
That was really beautiful, Veronica. Very good, very good. Well done, well done. Thank you, thank you. So Veronica, do you think you're up for it? Let's run a proper search now. So do you want to share your Google, go on Google and let's run a proper search so everyone sees how everything is built from the start and how to use those Boolean operators that you very elegantly explained.
Yeah, of course.
So guys, just stay put. Let's see how we do it on PubMed, and if we've got the time, we'll do an Ovid one as well, but PubMed precisely.
Yeah, I actually also wanted to show you guys this really helpful tool. So if you just search like PubMed and then mesh, this little thing comes up. And if you search for, I don't know, let's do spine. And you click on this term, it actually helps you identify a lot of the terms that you may want to use related to the spine if you're looking for something in the spine. And it helps show you where the spine sits within sort of the mesh tree. And you can do the same with, I don't know, we can do the same with plasmacytoma since we're talking about it. But this is sort of like, I'm just showing you guys how I've done the search strategy for that paper. So it helps identify a lot of the terms that you may want to use. So it's not like you're going to have to sit there and just, think of 10,000 synonyms to what a plasmacytoma is, because this tool is really helpful. And and it shows you what it sits.
So you can see, guys, you can see where you could find your synonymous terms when creating that table where Veronica showed us, where you have those similar terms to the word, to the keyword. You can see where you can find the entry terms you could use in creating that. So yeah, lovely, very good.
Yeah. So if I just go back, so yeah, this is how I identify all these text words.
All these keywords there, yeah.
And so now, once you've sort of identified your three main components that you'll be searching for, so for example, here it was 3 because we're searching for spine, plasmacytoma, and solitary. So
sorry, Veronica, blow up that pickle so they see what the pickle looks like, what were the components of the pickle, so they know how we found the keywords we're going to use. Just blow up your screen if that's, I think it's small.
Oh, sorry.
Fantastic. So everybody, can you see that pickle on that table? You could see population was patient with solitary plasmacytoma. The intervention was radiotherapy. The comparison was radiotherapy plus surgery, and those were the outcomes. And from there, Veronica has itemized the major words were plasmacytoma in the spine and solitary. So those are the key things that we're looking out for. Those are the key 3 words, and those are the key 3 words that she went ahead to look for the text words that were similar to them, and then the mesh terms as well. I don't know if it makes sense. So continue, Veronica.
Yeah, exactly. So as Sinead was saying, for each of those like 3 components, I've created the search strategy. So we've got solitary, and then we're searching for solitary and this, and all the keywords related to plasmacytoma, and in the spine. So now if I run this search on PubMed, I'm just going to go ahead and put this in, and it's going to retrieve, for example, 271 results. And this is what's
exactly. So these are the results from that search where you've included all the key text words, and you can see what Veronica said. If you Veronica, if you go back to that table again, just a minute, that's okay.
This one?
And yeah, this one is fantastic, good. So you could see, let's also see the Boolean operator alongside with that table down. Lovely, good. So you could see clearly, if you're using the word and, you're combining 2 sets and looking at where they overlap. If you're using the word or, you're combining everything from set A and set B, no discrimination. We don't necessarily use not commonly, so leave not alone. Just and or is fantastic. And look at the way she used it in her search term. For those keywords, they were solitary, they were plasmacytoma, and solitary, spine, and surgery, right? And what has she done? She's then created keywords similar to them. So extramedullary plasmacytoma, plasma cell neoplasm, plasma cell neoplasm, plasma cell tumor, all of them, she combined them with or. So Veronica, tell us more why you use the word or in combining those key terms, and just give us another run through so that it just makes everyone understands it better.
Yeah, of course. So basically, in after you've identified your main sort of things that you want to look for,
And those are those
right,
text words there, yeah?
within each like major word. So in this case, it was 3 major words, but obviously depending on your search, this may be more, this may be less. So the main 3 things that we were looking for, that we wanted from our search, is plasmacytoma in the spine, and to make it a solitary plasmacytoma. So within that, I would say that you want to use the word or between all your text words for that one line.
Exactly, and that's because or combines all those words, everything about those words. So whoever mentioned extramedullary, whoever mentioned plasma cell neoplasm, within that text word of the synonyms, you use the word or. You go to the other synonyms, use the word or, and to combine both of them, you can then use and. Yeah, go on, Veronica. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So you would want to use the word and to combine ideas, right? But you would want to use the word or to combine synonyms.
Correct.
I think that's the best way to think about it.
Exactly. So yeah, that was really good. Then if you go back to your search now, that's the search you got on PubMed. So after you've done all this fantastic combination, you've gotten the papers you're looking out for. I know Hussein is going to tell us this, he's going to tell us about this next week. But just show us how you export this research, because these are all papers, right? How do you export it?
Yeah, so basically it depends on the I mean, if we're using Rayan, I would just go into save, then make sure you're clicking all results instead of just all on this page. So just all results. And then Rayan likes either PubMed ID or CSV. So then I would just click PubMed ID, create file, and then that will create a file here that I can then put into my search manager, such as PubMed or Covidence, to then start the screening.
Exactly. So you would put that on Rayan and then screening begins. So that then brings us to what we're going to do next week. So next week, we're going to be talking about screening process. We'll talk about how to extract data, as well as how to then assess these are papers you've gotten, how to perform what they call risk of bias and quality assessment. So those are kind of things that we're going to be talking about next week, alongside with practical examples like this. But yeah, so thank you very much, Veronica. That was really, really good. That was really insightful. So guys, does anyone have any question or anything you want clarification for?
Do you want to add anything?
I just want to say for the not, we usually don't use not, but at the end you can add limits to your search, especially on like Medline or Embase. You can put like add the limit or something like that, so you can search for only for humans, only for English, or between a certain set of dates. So in general, don't use not, just add limits at the end if you think they're appropriate.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, guys. So I would take the silence as satisfaction.